Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy, to talk about a deck that I don't think I'd seen before. There might be some good reasons for that, but I like it. It's a really unique idea. So I was on, it's the Tarot of Physics. Tarot Physics by, looks like Dan Horn and Corinne Kenner, and it looks like there is a website there. But what I did was, I don't know if I had like some of the, periodically when I have an interest in an out-of-print deck, I will get online and, look. I'll just do a general look, and I happen to end up on Tarot Garden, which is, I think, only in the US. And I don't know if I've maybe gotten one other deck from Tarot Garden, but my impression is that although it looks like Tarot Garden is a retailer, I think that it's a place where people put up their products, just kind of like Amazon can sometimes, you're buying from another person rather than Amazon as a company. So yeah, I was just idly, I think I was listening to a video, and so I was idly looking through some of the categories that they have. They have a big long drop down menu, and I saw down on there that it's science and tarot. I thought, oh well, that's interesting, so I'll look at that. And so there was a deck, this deck. I don't know if there was another one as well. There might have been something like science fiction or something. But I saw this Tarot of Physics, and I thought, well, that's an interesting concept. And it had some of the pictures, and I was a bit charmed. It wasn't a particularly expensive deck. And although this deck was certainly printed, or I would say there's some sort of manufacturing process to it. I don't know if you can see there. You can kind of see in the middle of the cards. You can see that those little snags there. I assume that's where the cards had all been on one sheet, and that's where they kind of broke. But what it feels like is that one side feels like parchment paper, and the other side just feels like it's been laminated. So laminate and parchment paper. I haven't tried to shuffle it yet because I wanted to go through it in order. And this is the backs. And I'm going to go through it in order because I wanted people to just sort of see how whoever, what are they? Dan and Corinne. How Dan and Corinne attempted to use both general principles of physics or categories of physics and the principles in order to make them match traditional meanings or not match traditional meanings. And I was actually kind of surprised the extent to which they were able to make it match. And I will say this little snaggy business I was showing you in the middle of the cards there, you can feel it. It's not just visual, you can feel it. I'm sure that will come off with a fairly fine sandpaper. You could probably just go over that and it would more or less be gone. When the cards are loose, they're like that, so they don't lay quite like, so they feel a little bit on the homemade side. They're not like a mass-produced deck or even something that comes from Game Crafter is usually uniform, and this doesn't seem quite uniform. More like somebody who took parchment paper and put put clear lamination on it. And I don't know if anybody has done lamination before, but you know how it kind of can sometimes pull on the card to make them a little bit bowed. Some are more bowed than others, like these cards are suffering more than others. So hopefully I have not messed up. No. The order, since I was wanting to keep the order. So this could be a bit of a long video because I'm going to go through each card. And so this is for science nerds and tarot lovers, both. There's this one card that kind of gives a layout, but it's really not about a layout. It's really acquainting you, I think, with the suits. So they have the majors, and their suits are, is that the energy? I think that's energy. If my energy, space, time, and matter. Those are our suits. Now, again, things aren't exactly perfect to me in terms of how they've assigned things to them, but I'm assuming that energy is the wands, time is the swords, matter is the pentacles, and space is the cups. And they kind of, well, they don't have it that way for energy, but you know, that looks like a pentacle, and that looks like a cup, and that would be a sword. So I'm guessing that is for wands. So those are the suits. So let's delve into it here. So Big Bang, you know, and their font that they chose is a little bit difficult. The E's are very funky, but anyway. So Big Bang, the singularity. And it says, in the beginning there was perfect balance and all was one. Now, is that full energy? I don't know. The idea of singleness makes sense. And perhaps you could say that the Fool is under that illusion that there is no separation. The Magician. Light wave. And it's got the diagram. So source of the light, reflection, absorption, gravity effect. A light wave travels so fast that time appears to stop. In other words, there's an illusion. And that's what I take from that. Semiconductor. I thought this was a curious concept for the High Priestess. Semiconductor. Maybe you're in two worlds. I don't know. So it's got this energy. It says crystals interact with electromagnetic signals. So I guess that's what's happening with your third eye. There's a quartz crystal in here also. The Empress is called propagation. I didn't know there was a scientific concept or a physics concept of propagation. So origin, and then these rings. Sound waves travel through matter, space, and time. So, and that, see, to me, that sound waves travel through matter, space, and time, that's a little opaque for me as far as being the Empress. The idea of propagation, maybe with, is propagation with an A or an O? I don't know. So if anybody sees something and says, well, Jennifer, it means this, it connects with the traditional tarot meaning in this way, please share down in the comments below. The Emperor is space-time. And so somebody who kind of bends space-time. So space and time bend around large objects. So the Emperor being a large solid object that bends space and time. Electrical conductor is the Hierophant. And I like when they show this, and I don't know if anybody else, I grew up with one of these, you know, where the little thing collects here and then it makes something swing on the other side. In terms of the Hierophant being so take it that spirit hits the Hierophant and the Hierophant, you know, exchanges the energy out into whoever they're teaching or imparting wisdom to. Electronic energy passes through adjacent atoms. And so you'd have to think of the two figures in the Rider-Waite-Smith as the adjacent atoms. Or you could think of the Hierophant as the adjacent atom, and, you know, spirit energy passing through to the other side. The Lovers is fusion. I think this is great. The Lovers is fusion. Atom and atom. When repelling forces are overcome, the strong force takes over. And I just think that that's a great definition for the Lovers. And this is an interesting diagram of the Chariot, where the one at the bottom is the charioteer, and then the two at the top are the whatever's pulling the chariot. It varies. So this is a flux capacitor. No idea what that is. It says energy time, which is EC, equals matter space. So between the two, in other words, these two things are polar opposites, right? Energy and time are not represented. This is the opposite of this. They do not share anything in common right here, except that space is represented by C cubed, which I didn't realize that. I enjoy science, have enjoyed science. I don't get into it as much now as I did in my teens and 20s, but never physics, and I've never taken a class in physics. Although I recognize some things like leverage just from everyday life. So strength is represented by leverage. A simple diagram. A lever multiplies the force applied to an object. So it's not as cozy as the subdued lion with the maiden, but I get the association of her maybe using, well, for one thing, if you think of her as prying open the jaws. Actually, there's one other physics concept in here that could potentially work for that, but then you could think of it as being levered. It would be, fulcrum point or something. But I would see the leverage as maybe convincing somebody with reason, something along those lines. Okay, the Hermit. Now this one was confusing to me. So the Hermit is recorder. And it says, magnetic patterns are recorded on tapes or discs for later playback. So, see, this strikes me as being more actually Fool-oriented, in that, you go out and you experience and then you reflect on it later, as opposed to the Hierophant. But, I don't know. I suppose it could be for either. There definitely needs to be a relation between the two of them, but between the Fool and the Hermit as single figures that are in the mountains, but the Fool is ready to walk off the cliff, and the Hermit's more sensible. The Wheel. And I preferred, they actually have a wheel in here elsewhere, the zodiac sign wheel. So some things that appear in this deck are not hard science, but But this is the spiral. As you see there, each cycle has its own starting point, which is what creates this spiral. And they're calling it orbit. Justice, and this I didn't quite get, for 11 is the double helix. And like a biological semiconductor, DNA holds life's records. But I don't see how justice has to do with records, or holding records. That, to me, would have maybe been more of a Hierophant kind of a card. But anyway, I don't know, I just get into this. So the Hanged Man, suspension. An attachment above offsets the pull of gravity. And I had never thought of that. I have never thought of something hanging like that. I would never have been a physicist. You know, I would never have been one of those people who asks this question like, why does it just hang there? Why doesn't it float off? Or, whatever initial thoughts these people had when they would see something hanging there and figure out, well, why doesn't it do this? Why does it do that? Why does it hang there? Anyway, wouldn't have been me. I would have just been literal and said, well, I don't know, but it's great that it's hanging there and that's what we needed to do. Let's move on. So yeah, the attachment above, as above, so below, right? The attachment above offsets the pull of gravity or a difficult situation that you're having down below. So, great. Death is the black hole. And I thought there was someplace else I might have put this too, but let's see what it says. Energy, matter, space, and time collapse in a black hole. So the collapse word made me think more of a tower, but I get this for death, definitely. Death of a star, right? It's your black hole. Temperance is balance, so I don't understand why this wasn't the justice card, but here it is. A fulcrum balances weights across distance. And so the way that I can relate this to temperance is seeing the person pouring them. Normally they're pouring at uneven levels, kind of like the dishes of the scale. And that would make the angel that normally appears in the Rider-Waite-Smith, that would make the angel kind of the fulcrum, I would think. And I thought that was interesting. But anyway, again, if you have better, more logical insights into how these relate to regular tarot, please share. The observer. So this is the devil, and so this I didn't quite get either, I don't think. We only measure one of many potentials, and it appears to be the only reality. See, now I would have thought that that would have been a good 8 of Swords, because you're not able to see beyond the 8 swords. That's your reality, and you're not going past it. But in any case, you've got the Eye of Sauron. So there we go. Nuclear reaction for the Tower. And they did make this work. And I love the way that, they go into the 236, uranium-236, and I don't know if the BA is barium, I don't remember. Yep, there it is. Okay, a relatively small particle can have a huge cascading effect. That's the nuclear reaction, yeah. So I get that for the Tower, I do. And it's just great. It's a great sort of thing to keep in mind. I mean, this would be a great card to pull and say, what small particle, what small thing is, if I was thinking, which I'm not, getting another dog, or animal of any kind, or anything entering my life, and I were to pull this card, it would give me, even if I thought of it as something rather small and simple, it would give me pause because of that statement. The star is refraction. So that's cool, light entering and then dividing into its parts, the blue, the green, the yellow, the red. Single light source contains a range of combined wavelengths. So I think the idea there is, having a spectrum, having possibility, seeing possibility and hope in possibility. The moon. So I don't know if it's the moon's magnetism affecting the magnetic fields of Earth that causes the tides. I didn't know that, but I'm guessing that must be the case in terms of putting this up. Here we go. The yawning begins. Putting magnetism as the moon. Alignment of particles inside creates force outside. Now I can see that in terms of psychology, if you see the moon as representing internal reflection, because then what you have is aligning your internal psychological particles in terms of reflection, and creates action. You reflect and then you decide and you act. Excuse me. Radiation for the sun. And so there's the sun radiating on the earth. Sunlight is required for life on earth. Now that's such a simple statement. Oh. And I'm doing this relatively early in the evening because I was afraid of doing it any later because I would be tired. But I guess I didn't manage to escape that. Yeah, I don't mind radiation, but it seems kind of a bland statement. Radiation makes perfect sense for the sun. And you could, in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, see the child as radiating his own energy, or even the horse, for that matter. Subjective reality for judgment. And so they're taking judgment, I think, as the word to judge, not so much about the resurrection aspect of it. So, speed of light instantaneous, differing aspects appear to confirm the observation from a range of probabilities. To me, this is just saying that you can't see everything from one perspective, and presumably thus should not judge, or at least be aware that you're judging and from where you are judging, your perspective. So the world is called the multiverse, so maybe it should be worlds with an S. Theories of alternate dimensions explain quantum interactions, which is totally above my head. I'm just going to have to take their word for it. Ace of energy, battery. Doesn't that make perfect sense? And it's even wandish in its upright appearance. And it gives us charges, electrolytes, zinc, copper, the elements, positive and negative charges. Battery collects and stores electric energy. So, so if we think of that as wood, as storing energy, that makes sense to me. Energy that can be turned into fire. Generator. So this a little less so, except for the aspect maybe of movement. The twos were a little problematic for me in terms of how they parsed them out. So generator. Moving magnets generate electricity. Two of energy. So I guess that's kind of the draw to when a person in the Two of Wands is wanting to change or move, would be to generate electricity. They're out of electricity and they want to generate some excitement in their life. Transformer is the Three of Energy, and you've got 3 loops there at the bottom, and you've got a bunch of symbols that I'm not going to try to make out. Come on. Maybe I need to put it in front of my face. Still doesn't want to focus. There we go. Energy can transfer between separate coils without touching. I don't know. Three of Wands. This would be an interesting card to pull if you had a long-distance relationship, or potentially, you know, if this came up for somebody who was wanting a love reading, that would be a question I would ask. Is this person at a distance? You're generating your energy at a distance. 4 of Energy, 4 of Wands, transistor. For anybody who knows electrical diagrams, there you go. A transistor amplifies and switches electronic signals. And so, I don't know, that might be a completely different and new 4 of Wands. Potential energy for 5 of Energy, or 5 of Wands. Potential energy is stored and will be used when triggered. And I get that. For the 5 of Wands, you know, where, you know, everybody's swinging their wands around. Although I could see this more for the 5 of Swords. Somebody getting triggered and overdoing and alienating others. But still, the whole message there. Potential energy stored. In other words, you hadn't been expressing your anger or your competitive drive, and then you're triggered and down you roll. And then we're at the next stage here with energy, with the 6. So 5 and 6, the ball is now rolling. Kinetic energy. And this makes sense too with the 6, kind of being on top of things, you know, and, you know, you're being carried along by the acclaim that you have received in the 6 of Wands. An object in motion stays in motion. But I could also see that as being the 6 of Swords. And here's our quartz crystal, 7 of Energy, so 7 of Wands. And this I think I didn't quite get either. So you've got the different ways, I suppose, that the energy is exiting. A quartz crystal can store and channel electric energy. So maybe that's just sort of an excuse, you know, it's upright, standing upright, but there's nothing opposing it. But maybe this idea that, you know, having stored and channeled electric energy is part of what keeps the person in the 7 of Wands on top of things. He has stored energy that he's using. 8 of Energy, so 8 of Wands is radio transistor, which is perfect, right? It's a signal to antenna. Patterns encoded onto electromagnetic energy are broadcast to radios. 8 of Energy. So it's that broadcasting with the 8 of Wands. That could also have been the High Priestess, I think. 9 of Energy. Dark energy. And see, I would have said that this could have been better off as the 9 of Swords, maybe. Anyway, 70% of the universe is made of undetectable dark energy. So I can see how this might be, well, no, because the Nine of Wands, maybe, you know how the Nine of Wands, he's standing there kind of looking suspicious after he's been embattled, but, you know, he's holding his own. So maybe it's the dark energy, the unknown, and undetectable is what's making him suspicious in the Nine of Wands, Rider-Waite-Smith. 10 of energy. Galactic energy. So the energy produced by a galaxy. A spiral galaxy rotates matters and rotates matter and draws it down into its center, which, you know, that's what is happening, right? That's what is that. I think this is being assigned to the 10 of Wands because of the shape of the wands that the person is holding. Kind of drawing things down into the center of the person, as well as, it's not the center of the wands, it's actually off-center toward the bottom, but still. So that's my interpretation of how they got that for the 10 of the 10 of energy. I could see it also, though, as that definition as being the 10 of Pentacles. All right, Page of energy, gravity. See, and I would have thought of gravity to be more appropriate for a pentacle, Page of Pentacles. But anyway, here we are. Gravity. Gravity pulls objects, including light. So maybe it's the idea that that is what the page is doing there, standing with his wand, as he's attempting to pull stuff to him. Okay, the Knight of energy. And it's interesting because in this, the Knight of energy, in this deck, the Knight of energy is a weak force, and I think the King is the strong force. So the Knight of energy, weak force, weak interaction, allows one quark to change into another, which is really strange. I didn't know that quarks could change into each other. Maybe by changing into the other, they mean transfer into something else? I don't know. My lack of physics knowledge is showing. But at least there's the idea of movement. Queen of energy is electromagnetism. So maybe it's because the Queen of Wands is supposed to be charismatic and magnetic. You know, she has magnetism. Electromagnetic force causes all interactions except for gravity. So that gives her a lot of power, certainly. King of energy, strong force, and it shows an atom. And there's one of those little nibs on the side. The strong force holds a nucleus intact, but has no influence farther out. So that's an interesting limitation for a king. So I don't know about that. Ace of time. So I was interpreting the time cards as swords. A plank. Epic. For those to whom that diagram actually has a meaning, I'm showing it. When the universe began, gravity affected atomic level forces. And again, it's escaping me a little bit of how that suits the Ace of Swords. But as is often the case, the Swords is actually, I think, a little problematic in this deck. And the Cups are a little bit too. Because that's not what they are. They're time and... I can't remember what the Cups were. Time and space. Actually, you'll crack up when we get to at least the Ace and the 2 and the 3 are really interesting in the space. The space / cups. Okay. Pendulum for the 2 of time, so the 2 of swords. And so I can kind of see that with the way she's holding, you know, in terms of maybe letting one down or something. But the idea of pendulum and the way they describe it here almost reminds me again more of the, you know, infinity sign that's in the 2 of Pentacles. But in any case, here it is. A pendulum swings evenly across the center of gravity. A speaker. 3 of time, 3 of swords. Speaker. I guess this is how speakers work. Magnetic field pulses. And this is the 3 of time, so it's the 3 of swords. So pulsing would be like the heartbeat. Magnetic field pulses diaphragm. And there's the diaphragm. And electromagnetic force pulses a speaker to the beat of the music. So if your music is sorrow because you've been told to, you know, that somebody no longer loves you, or you have to move out, and, you know, something along those lines, your diaphragm or your heart will pulse to that signal, the signal of that magnetic field. 4 of time or 4 of swords, and I think I didn't get this one either. Atomic clock. I've never heard of atomic clock either. So they've got emitter and collector. 4 of time. So if this is what we have, is emitter and collector, then I would assume that the person lying on the sepulcher, or whatever that is that he's lying on in the church, in the 4 of swords, that he is the collector. As atomic clock measures, an atomic clock measures natural microwave energy. And that's another one that's over my head, and I don't understand what it's talking about. Geiger counter for 5 of swords. A Geiger counter detects radiation and portrays it as sound. Again, I don't know. For 5 of swords. Particle and wave. 6 of time or 6 of swords. So I like this with the waves and even the meaning, you know, when you think of the waves that are visible on in the 6 of swords. Separate photons create waves as if they were interacting in a group. I was thinking that could work, that phrase could work also for in the pentacles. Okay, cathode ray tube. So this is, you know, what used to be in old televisions, and how you would get a projection an image on the screen. So it says magnetic field reorients the electron beam And then the fluorescent screen glows, and this is for the 7 of time. So the 7 of swords. So this one was baffling too. How this has to do with somebody sneaking away with swords. It says a magnet orients passing electrons to create a visual image. So I could see that he is orienting the swords away from the place that they were. Or maybe he's projecting an image of innocence. I don't know. It's interesting. So this is, it's a novelty deck. I don't know, maybe it will prove useful, actually useful. But it's a novel. I like it as a novelty deck because it makes me think, to stretch my understanding of a card, to understand how it's being interpreted for this deck, this stretch. Now, I might be having a difficult time getting this to work because this deck might not be Rider-Waite-Smith based. It might be Thoth based. Do I have that here? I do. I could look up the 7 of Swords and see if it's... Let me see. Or the 7 could be based more on something numerological. Oh, well, that was swords, so why do I keep flipping? No, because the 7 of Swords is futility. And I don't think that this is futility. Okay, so scrap that idea. Satellite for the 8 of time, so it would be the 8 of Swords. Satellites broadcast signals to and from Earth. It could be that that's what she needs, the woman who's trapped in the 8 of Swords, so that she could communicate with the people back in the city behind her and let them know her predicament. I'm not sure. You guys let me know if you have any idea what that has to do with. 9 of time, or the 9 of Swords, is a light year. So from the Earth to Alpha Centauri is 4 light years. From the Earth to the Sun is 8 light minutes. A light year is the distance light travels in 1 Earth year. And see, I don't see how this has to do with a Rider-Waite-Smith. Again, if that's what's being used. 9 of Swords. And then this would be the 10 of Swords, which is astrology. 10 of time. Early scientists saw destiny in the stars. And see, that I would have done that as the wheel. Okay, and I don't see how that quite, unless you see the swords that are normally in the person's back as aspects of his destiny, something he couldn't escape or something like that. So an ohm is the Page of Time, or the Page of Swords. And I really like this. Electrical resistance can draw energy into a substance. So that could be whether the knight or the Page of Swords is trying to provoke someone, or whether he is meeting resistance from what he wants to go to. And it's like when he meets that resistance, it charges him with energy. And that continues with one of these. I can't remember if it's... Is it the king? Kind of. So the Knight of Time, or the Knight of Swords, we have current and the light. Electrical current travels from an energy source to a resistance. And okay, so that makes sense. In other words, you know, with his sword, he is going to fight the resistance or the rebels, or whatever. The Queen of Time is Field, so that's a curious assignment. Again, if this is like crystal clear to you, down in the comments below, please enlighten not only me, there must be others. What does it say? Current and field. So a perpendicular field surrounds flowing electrical current. So the perpendicular, maybe it's her holding the sword up and creating a field around it that kind of keeps people at a distance, maybe. Next, King of Time, Volt. Electrical voltage is a measure of potential built up between terminals. So to me, that would be for the King of Swords. If you think of him as somebody who creates boundaries, you know, there's the person on the other side. There's the, you know, the person in the kingdom next door where you're trying to manage your boundary. That would be your each terminals. And the amount of charge between the two of you, the energy that's being exchanged between the two of you, is a measure of the potential. Like I see the potential of harvesting your fields, and the other person sees the potential of, you know, the having an access to the ocean, and that is potential built up between the two terminals that make it possible that there might be an electrical charge between them. Alright, so we're on to cups. Oddly enough, although when you read it, it will make some sense. Ace of Space. And don't you love that? Ace of Space. It's like Ace of Base, Ace of Space. Is the line, and it says a single line connects 2 points. So even though it's a single line, there are two things involved. And there's a connection being made, presumably with your heart space, if we're doing, you know, as we're trying to apply it to cups. And then the two, you know, you've got this flat thing that doesn't look like the lovers at all, but look at that, X and Y. And X and Y, of course, we have X and Y chromosomes for male and female. So a plane, excuse me, and it says two-dimensional space. Two-dimensional space is measured in coordinate pairs. And I love that. It's almost like you can't exist without having that coordinate pair. So, yeah, I just find this conceptually really interesting and really fun, which is why I'm going to spend a lot of time on it. So I hope anybody else watching this, whether you watch it in thirds or every 10 minutes, every now and then you come back and check out a little bit more. Three of Space. So this would be Three of Cups. And we're calling this position. And so that dot in the middle would be what you create in your group of three. It says three intersecting lines identify a point in 3 dimensions. So it's like you're finding your commonality there in the center. 4 of Space, and this amuses me. Cube. And of course, cubes are generally, when you're square, you're supposed to be boring, boring and predictable. And so the definition is a cube has the same distance, length, depth, and height. And this is shaking because something is shaking my home. And I'm going to sneeze. I think it was the helicopter going over that was vibrating my home. I don't know. Maybe we just had a tremor of some kind, because I'm not sure that what I'm hearing is a helicopter or a plane. And I say helicopter because we have a helicopter. I don't know if they repair helicopters. There's some kind of training center not far from military helicopters. So sometimes they do go over, but I usually don't cause that kind of vibration that I'm aware of. Okay, so everything is the same. So, and that's the Four of Cups, right? He doesn't want more of the same. I think my face is kind of so red because I'm a little bit overheated. Five of Spades. Vacuum. So this is what you get, a feeling of emptiness, right? In that Five of Cups, that grief, a feeling of emptiness, a vacuum. Six of Spades, centrifugal force. And I guess that's kind of pulling you out. It's pulling you back to the past, maybe. Centrifugal force pulls outward while gravity pulls inward. So maybe that's... I guess I don't usually think of there being opposing forces in the Six of Cups, but maybe so, past and present. In fact, I am going to strip in front of you, and I hope that this does not trigger YouTube to suddenly show me a bunch of videos that have nothing of interest to me, but have people taking their clothes off. Okay, so Seven of Spades, Seven of Cups is perspective, and I was like, what? But then when I read it, it made sense. Distance makes objects appear smaller. So, the person who's imagining all of that stuff, and it's still all imagining, and it's in the distance. It's imaginary, it's in the distance, and it seems manageable, it seems doable. And I fall into this all the time because, and then as I start to do it, it's like, oh my God, this is just ridiculous. It takes so much time and there's so much involved in it. But from a distance, it seemed smaller and manageable and doable. So there we go. Okay, Eclipse for the Eight of Spades. And I can kind of see this for the... well, no, not for the Eight of Cups. I was almost thinking more the Eight of Swords. As an object between you and another hides the farther object from view. See, this strikes me as very Eight of Swords. Because just, having those swords right there, she can't even see them, but right there. And of course, she's got the blindfold, and that's the closest thing. Means that she can't see anything. She can't see beyond that. So yeah, I don't quite get this as the Eight of Cups. So let me know if you do. Maybe, oh, okay, I get it. I get it. All right. I think I get it. In terms of the kind of go finding yourself aspect of the Eight of Cups, is that, it's kind of like when you're in your family unit, when you're growing up and you're in your family unit, you almost don't know yourself because you haven't been able to, because you're so close to that you're not sure, you haven't kind of fully formed because you haven't fully engaged in the world. So it's like that blocks from you maybe possibilities of who you are, as well as just possibilities in the world, because an object between you and another, your family between you and the world, your parents between you and the world, hides the farther object from view. So I can kind of see that. Okay, 9 of space, 9 of cups. I've never even heard of this. Sonoluminescence. But sono is sound and luminescence is light. And so it's sound that causes light. So it says a filled beaker, and then you have sounders, or piezoceramic. I don't know if the sounders are piezoceramic or what. Creates light in the center. Sound can generate light in a spherical beaker of fluid. That is so interesting. And I don't know if they're thinking because, there's the cups are normally, there's an implied sphere because they're curved behind him, and that he would be the light at the center, or what. So I'm not quite getting that one either, but I can invent maybe a connection. The 10 of space, which would be the 10 of cups, expansion, and that makes some sense. The universe has been expanding since the beginning of time, so kind of expanding your family. Although I would almost think what they had for, what was it where they had the prism? I can't remember which card it was, but that was the star, I think. Makes more sense to me. This is one of the really bowed ones. Page of Cups, and this I don't get. I would think substance would be the Page of Pentacles, but here it is. Page of Space, Page of Cups would be substance. A substance occupies space and has mass. I don't get that one, so fill me in if you understand how that would be the Page of Cups. To me, that would be the Page of Pentacles. Alright, Knight of Cups, and this one I didn't get either. Pressure. I don't see the Knight of Cups as somebody who's under pressure or is seeking pressure. Pressure on a substance is the force against its surface. So I don't see how that relates to a traditional. Please share in the comments if it's clear to you. Volume as the Queen of Cups. Now I could see pressure on a substance is the force against its surface. Thinking of the pressure, when you put pressure on water, it just moves. So I'm trying to think of the watery aspect here, because I could see it with volume. Volume of a substance is the amount of space it occupies. I guess the Queen of Cups is a woman of volume, a woman of substance. Yeah, I don't know. It would require a little bit more stretching for me. Temperature for the King of Space, and I would have thought temperature you would have used for one of the wands, one of the wand cords. Spacing between molecules changes with temperature. True, right? Again, I'd have to look at that for a little bit and to see, you know, maybe when he's hot, you know, he somehow pushes people away. I don't know. He likes to be alone. Okay, so now we're into matter. This is the last suit. The ace of matter, appropriately enough, is the atom. Atoms are the basic building block of matter. Alrighty. Two of matter is the molecule. I like this, like H2O. Atoms share electrons to create molecules. Again, I could have seen that even as the Two of Cups, but I don't know if this is supposed to be seen as with these two here as kind of mimicking the infinity sign with the pentacles in them. I don't know. Three of matter, gear. Moving gears force other gears to move. That makes sense with the cooperative aspect of the Three of Pentacles. This might be a humorous interpretation of the Four of Pentacles. Wedge, like trying to wedge those pentacles away from the guy who's holding on to them. That's the only way I can see this. A wedge magnifies, multiplies. A wedge multiplies downward force sideways. Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly. Maybe he's having to hold on to those. What does he have? Two in. Does he have two on the front of him? One above. Or no, he has two on his feet. And then one he's holding on to and one on his head. Well, that kind of mimics an appearance. 1, 2. If you were to take this as 3 and then this is the 4. I don't know. 5 is weight. And I think that's kind of feeling the weight of poverty. The gravitational pull of the earth is constant. So that's the pressure that they're under in their situation there. And here's the wheel. 6 of matter, and this makes sense in terms of as they define it here. A wheel distributes weight over its circumference. So if you think of the 6 of Pentacles as distributing for good function, distributing your pentacles throughout society instead of just in one area. An inclined plane is the 7 of matter, 7 of Pentacles. An inclined plane reduces the effort needed to lift an object. Again, maybe it's a suggestion in terms of how to get things moving in the 7 of Pentacles. Reducing the person's effort and hopefully getting results faster. The 8 of Pentacles is planet. After the Big Bang, matter coalesced into planets. And so those would be our 8 pentacles. Do we have... How many planets do we have anymore? I'm losing my mind. Well, not my mind, but my knowledge. I think when I was growing up, they called it 9? 7, 9? I thought it was an odd number. I'm not going to count right now. I could sit here. I'll probably do it after I'm finished. I'll sit down and name all of the planets and then count them. Celestial bodies for the 9 of Pentacles. Galaxies and stars are objects of fascination and beauty. I can kind of see that. I would almost see that as like a 9 of Cups, but that's okay. I can see that as, I think of the 9 of Pentacles as being more a card of security, but whatever. 10 of Pentacles, Galaxy. I think it's galaxies, but galaxy. Each of 100 billion galaxies have 10 billion to have 10 million to 100 trillion stars. Each galaxy. Each of the 100 billion galaxies. 10 of matter. So just expansive relationship and reproduction. You could see that in the 10 of Pentacles also. Page of matter is a solid. Okay, I can take him. What did we have for the other? It wasn't solid. And then back at the cups. The page of space was substance. Not a solid, but substance. Okay. So page of matter is solid. Molecules in solids are arranged in a fixed immobile lattice. So he's going nowhere. I would almost associate that kind of fixed and immobile with the Knight of Pentacles, but let's look further. He gets to be, so what, oh, we have all of the types of substances, or not conditions. I can't. So the page is solid, the Knight is liquid, the Queen is a gas, and the King is plasma. So what, I've lost it all. I don't remember what we call those. It's not conditions. States. There we go. I think that's it. States of matter. Molecules in a liquid are free to move. He's free to move. He might not, but he's free to. The Queen, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel being a female and being associated with gas. Yeah, Queen of matter, molecules in a gaseous state are widely spaced and move freely. And I take that in the sense of her having a wide garden. And then the King of Pentacles, plasma. Ions and electrons in a plasma state move independently. So, to me, that's just one of the characteristics of a king, is a certain level of independence of movement. So let me see how this shuffles, just to let you know. And I think just because it's such a curious deck, I will probably do a deck interview. Ooh, shuffles really nicely. Shuffles really nicely. And how about overhands? Overhand is okay, slightly problematic because of the few that are more bowed, kind of can get in the way. So there you go. If you want to do a homemade deck, parchment paper and lamination. Yeah, look at that. Very easy on my hands. And it's not making it excessively bowed either. It's not making it, it's not making it way bowed by doing my riffle shuffles. But yeah. Yeah, the ones that are excessively bowed make the overhand shuffle a little bit problematic, but it's a very easy shuffler, very easy riffle shuffler. All right, So there you go. You have to tell me down in the comments if you found this interesting and entertaining enough to actually stick with me for an hour. Even if it was a matter of coming back, watching a little bit, and then coming back and saying, oh, I gotta check out the rest of that physics deck. It's really bizarre. All right, everybody. Take care. See you later. Bye-bye.